Erastil, the first gift you ever receive is your family. We all grow from the seeds of our parents' plant. A quote from the Parables of Erastil. Erastil, Old Deadeye, god of family, farming, hunting, and trade. Alignment is lawful good. Domains are animal, community, good, law, and plant. Favored weapon is the long bow. Centers of worship are Andoran, Cheliax, Galt, Isker, lands of the Limnworm kings, Mana wastes, Molthun, Nermathus, river kingdoms, and Varisia. His nationality is considered Ulfin. Erastil, also known as Old Deadeye, is an ancient deity who first became known on Golarion when early humanoids began to domesticate and dominate their natural surroundings. Pastoral legends claim that Old Deadeye crafted the first bow as a gift to mortals, so that they may learn to hunt and survive in the dangerous world. Though civilization has continued to advance beyond simple villages, Erastil remains popular in tradition and in the frontiers of the world, a transitional figure between the worship of the green faith and the religions of cities. Erastil is primarily a deity of nature, focusing on plants and animals that farmers, hunters, and ranchers deal with in their challenging lives. He is also a god of close-knit communities and families, and has a protector aspect that only surfaces when such things are threatened. Erastil eschews crusades and brazen heroism, and he has no grand plans to eradicate chaos and evil from the world. He simply wants to have people be able to live their lives in peace without the threat of being devoured by monsters, conscripted into an army, or destroyed by world-ending magic. He is a stern patriarch whose spirit is as hard as wood. He isn't afraid to face down a bully, nor is he too proud to calm a frightened child. He teaches how to read the turning of the seasons, how to know when to sow and reap, how to tell when livestock are sick or gravid, how to poultice a wound and set a broken leg, how to spot a strangling sheep, or the signs that a dog has gone rabid. He believes that cooperation leads to friendship and safety, and that if mortals respect the gifts of nature, it will sustain them. He loves customs that encourage strong family bonds, no matter how quaint they are by modern standards, and enjoys hunting for sustenance, but not for sport. Happy weddings and new babies make him smile. He is not one to spout philosophy, and instead gives practical advice and hands-on teaching. Old Deadeye believes that leadership is a virtue of strong souls, and that groups function best when led by a benevolent leader, whether that group is his church, a community, or a family. Many communities strong in Erastil's faith follow the leadership of a village patron or matron, another elder, or the scions of a family renowned for their clear-headedness and past members' leadership roles. In Erastlian families, one family elder is likewise viewed as the leader of the clan or head of the household. The members of such groups typically defer to that leader's plan for peace and prosperity, contributing their own talents, skills, and labors for the benefit, betterment, and improvement of the whole community. Erastil believes that children should honor their parents and know when it is time to work or time to play. He dislikes the chaos and trouble that adventurers bring, and while they may have their uses when monsters come sniffing about, it is best if adventurers take care of them quickly and receive a meal and place to sleep, then move on before their wanderlust catches in an otherwise quiet community. Erastil's avatar is an upright hunter with the head of an elk, clad in well-used leathers and carrying a simple bow. Old legends say that halflings and humans each see him as a member of their own race, even when members of both races are looking at him at the same time. Some representations show him as a fully human person, usually of Ulfin or Killid heritage, depicting how he sometimes appears to children, lost travelers, or those he simply doesn't wish to reveal his divine nature to. In most stories, Old Deadeye's arrows never miss, and from communities, some of them still own a special arrow, supposedly once fired by Erastil, passed down through the generations as treasured and sacred connections to the god. Depictions of Erastil in artwork are uncommon, as his followers prefer focusing their energies on more practical matters. Those physical representations that do exist are often carved wooden placards bearing his likeness. These aren't worshipped as icons, but serve as constant reminders of his presence. In other communities, a stuffed elk's head, or just its horns, serve this purpose. In more elaborate representations, Erastil is shown fighting off wild animals or teaching people how to hunt. On the walls of a few ancient caves predating the Aslanti era are painted primitive silhouettes of an elk-headed man performing similar acts. Old Deadeye shows his approval through bountiful hunts, bumper harvests, mild weather, the appearance of straight paths, and the like, but he prefers to limit his direct intervention to helping needy people in lean times, as he does not want to encourage laziness. A hungry family might find their tiny garden providing bushels of vegetables. An old cow might start making milk again. A weary hunter's prey might stumble or become entangled, and so on. Hoofed animals are considered channels for Erastil's power, with elk horns being favored by his worshippers for making simple tools and weapons. Forked lightning is considered a sign of his presence, and creatures or structures struck by lightning are said to have been felled by Erastil's arrows. His anger is reserved for fellows and followers who betray his principles. He usually punishes them by changing them into something more useful to their community, such as a pig or a fruit tree. Mothers often warn misbehaving children that Erastil will transform them, and most communities have at least one small, gnarled tree that local legends claim was once an especially unruly child. Erastil's favorite weapon is the longbow, but his clerics and druids are proficient with the shortbow as well. Most of his priests are clerics, but a small minority are druids, rangers, and most rare, paladins, while a few remote communities are served by adepts. Druids usually serve communities in places where natural hazards and the weather are their greatest threats, while paladins tend to be leaders in lands where monsters lurk. Often called Old Deadeye by his faithful, Erastil is also known as Elk Father and the Old Hunter. His holy symbol is a bow made of elk antlers with a nocked arrow. A typical worshipper of Erastil is a common farmer, rancher, and village artisan or sustenance hunter who wants to live her life, take care of her family, and not worry about kings, wars, or monsters. Erastlians are not pretentious, and while they might be proud of their accomplishments, they're simple folk, and their desires are modest. A good crop, a fine piece of land, a fat livestock, and a healthy family. They look after their neighbors' farms in emergencies, and expect the same in return, but are otherwise content to be left to their own business. Among the faithful, elk iconography is common, but they have no taboos about hunting these animals as long as no part of the body goes to waste. Because elk shed their antlers at the start of winter, tools made from them are fairly common, and even children may own simple knives made from antlers. At birth, a firstborn is given a elk tooth, supposedly to ensure fertility and a long life. In the extreme north, reindeer iconography is more common than that of elk, though the traditions and rituals among Erastil's worshippers are otherwise essentially the same. Hymns constitute most of the church's music, often with strong rhythm so that it can be sung to keep time during repetitive work. Flutes, drums, horns, and other easy-to-make, easy-to-play instruments are also common. Erastil is very pro-marriage, seeing it as the proper way to create families, and frowning on those who bend or break the sacred bonds with adultery or divorce. The Church sees marriage as a way to tame unruly men and women, and most often villages have at least one married couple who tied the knot after being caught in an indiscretion. Widows and widowers usually remarry, especially if there is still children in the household. Most of Erastil's priests are married, though they are not required to be.
A temple to Old Deadeye is almost always simple wooden building, longhouse, or even a town hall that serves as a rural community building for gathering, with religion being only one of its many uses. Sparsely decorated, such structures often contain highly functional furnishings, as the faithful prefer not to waste their holy area with rows of awkward, heavy pews and statues when sturdy tables and stools would make the area well suited for mending tools and clothes, food preparation, and other helpful crafts. In some cases, temples of Erastil have no seating, leaving the congregation to stand. In such temples, sitting during Erastil's faith short services, while not taboo, is looked down on for all but the elderly or infirm, and even they bring their own chairs or mats. A shrine to Erastil is usually little more than an antler or bow mark carved in a tree or rock.
Erastil's priests have a conventional role in the community, such as being farmers or artisans, in addition to their explicitly religious duties, and consider attending to the needs of their own family and families in the community a form of devotion as well. Most of a priest's day is spent performing mundane tasks just like any other member of the village, while the priest pausing only to bless at the dawn's breaking, but always ready to drop what he is doing and pitch in where he is needed. They are often called upon to build homes, deliver children, oversee trade, and bless crops. Erastil's priests are careful to put the needs of the community first, because Old Deadeye's gifts may give them an advantage in aiding their fellow townsfolk. For example, a cleric of Erastil, who is a shepherd, might use his skills and magic to take care of all the village's animals rather than just his own, even if that means he makes less money selling his own sheep at market. The prosperity of the community and the health of its flock being more important than his own wealth. Priests usually have studied diplomacy or intimidation, depending on their personal views, are skilled in healing, knowledge about their local community and the nature around it, and understanding and sensing the motive of others they deal with. Priests bless farmlands and herd animals, plan the planting and harvesting of their fruits, and look after injured folk and families in need. Priests often serve as community counselors and mediators, and are generally the first to step in with a firm hand to deal with the rebellious or disruptive member of the community, whether that person is a frequent drunk, an abusive spouse, or a child prone to screaming tantrums. Adult troublemakers who repeatedly break the community's trust and prove unwilling to change are usually branded on the hand and exiled from the community. To prevent more problems, they're usually pointed in the direction of the nearest city. If something comes along that's too much for the priest to handle, such as bandits, an orc band, or a hungry monster, it is the priest's responsibility as a community leader to find those who can deal with the problem, such as experts from other communities who share the faith or traveling adventurers. Every few years the church encourages young priests to set out from the community in search of news, seeds for new crops, alternate techniques for animal husbandry, and other useful news and skills that can aid their home villages. Though these wanderers appear to be a fish out of water, their stubborn dedication to helping those back home has guaranteed the survival of many poor villages, whether they acquired desperately needed money to send back, or by eradicating foul beasts that lurked nearby. Young adventuring priests often end up settling in remote villages saved by their heroic efforts, especially if there is a local priest unavailable. This gives them the faith and opportunity to grow and establishes the bonds of a greater community outside the immediate interests of a single village, though the church prefers to focus on life in small settlements. It sees the surrounding communities as a kind of externalized family and recognizes the importance of maintaining ties with them. Because a priest usually has a leadership role in a community, the priests of Erastil prefer to take charge when they are part of an adventuring party, and sometimes run into conflict with equally headstrong members of the group as a result. Though druids are a minority among the clergy, all priests respect them for maintaining the natural world they are all a part of and depend upon. They also give a nod to the rare paladins of the faith, who are willing to take up swords and shields so the common folk can keep on with their lives. Rangers rarely become leaders in the church, as their skills and magic cater less to healing and growth compared to other priests. Erastil's church is simple and practical. Most communities have only one or two priests, so complicated hierarchies are unnecessary, and priests defer to the wisdom of the elder clergy. Visiting priests are shown hospitality as is appropriate for their guest, but unless these visitors are particularly important, such as the eldest priest in the community, they typically defer judgment to the local leaders. Priests who are a part of a community are also called elders, regardless of their ranks within the community or church. Traveling priests are not associated with the community, are called brothers or sisters.
The Paladins of Erastil are gruff, strict traditionalists. They seek to preserve the integrity of rural life and communities. Their tenets include the following affirmations. My community comes first. I will contribute to it all that I can. If I don't give something back, who will? I must offer the poor in my community assistance, but I may not do the work for them. Instead, I must teach them to contribute to the settlement. It is only through cooperation that a community grows strong. When dangers threaten, I am not a fool. I seek first to make sure the weak and innocent are safe, and then I quell the danger. I keep the old ways, the true ways. I am not seduced by the lure of money or power. I remember that honor, true honor, comes from within, not from the accolades of others. I remember that reputation is everything. Mine is pure and upstanding, and I will repair it if it is broken or tarnished. I stand by my decisions and live so that none shall have cause to blame me. I show respect to my elders, for they have done much. I show respect to the young, for they have much left to do. I show respect to my peers, for they carry the load. I shall carry it with them. I am honest, trustworthy, and stable. If I must leave my lands and community before I go, I ensure that they will be tended in my absence. Even when duty calls, my duties to home come first. Letting them lapse makes me a burden on my people.
Because of his focus on the home and family, and the need for adults to be practical providers for their children and communities, Erastil produces fewer adventurers than many other gods. When his faithful do strike out on an adventure, it is invariably to help those they leave behind. Followers of Erastil seek riches not for their own sake, but for what such riches can do for their families and communities, and those forced to embark on a long adventure regularly count the days until they can return to the warmth and simplicity of home. Erastil's faithful desire to keep the peace, and while they do what they have to, the farther a conflict strays from regions that directly affect their own chosen community, the less they feel compelled to continue the fight. They are paragons of stability, some might say too much so. Yet while some might call Erastlian values quaint or backward, the faithful feel they serve as anchors for hearth, home, and family, and help folk understand their place in rural communities, while roles must be defined well. Given Erastil's focus on simplicity over frivolous adornment, the formal raiment of his clerics and druids is practical, and usually consists of a leather or fur cloak or shoulder cape branded with his symbol or affixed with a wooden badge bearing his mark. Communities led by a druid may have a ceremonial horned hat or drape made from the tanned hide of an elk. The Parables of Erastil is the common text of the Erastlian faith. It gives homilies on strengthening family bonds, almanac-like advice on planting, and lore about game animals and tracking. The number of chapters varies from place to place, as communities omit things irrelevant to their way of life and add fables emphasizing local events or traditions. Erastil believes extensive and complicated ceremonies take time away from necessary things like tending to crops and putting food on the table, so most religious events are short and to the point. The solstices and equinoxes are holy days for the Church. The week of the vernal equinox is called Planting Week by the faithful, and week of the autumn equinox is called the Harvest Fest, even though the associated rituals only take about an hour. The summer month of Erastis is named for Erastil. Archer Fest. This holiday on the 3rd of Erastis is a day of feasting, fun, and relaxation. Villages hold archery and stone-throwing contests. Ranchers rope and trade calves and lambs, and young people take permission to wed. Cider is served cold during the day and hot at night. At sundown, an animal is offered to the god, and everyone in the ceremony eats a piece to share in his blessing. Any folksy rule saying is likely to spill from the mouths of Erastil's faithful as if it were the god's dogma. Two in particular are favorites. Never trust a fool. Whether the fool is the village idiot trying to catch the moon with a spoon, or a traveling adventurer trying to inspire locals to rise up against the local lord, a sensible person ignores him, as no good can come from this work. Nothing is more satisfying than the fruits of a day's labor. This saying is used to chastise lazy folk and rebuke those who wonder what's so satisfying about a simple country life. Gold and gems make one weak. Hard work in a field shows strength of body and character. Erastil can be gruff and reserved, but he is still on good terms with most non-evil deities of Golarion. However, he is very set in his ways and frequently criticizes the particulars of his fellow deities' faiths and practices. Although Erastil's stodgy demeanor means that few deities go out of their way to fraternize with him, his skills at archery and tracking are among the greatest in the outer planes. More than once, other deities have sought out the god of hunters for his aid and insight into slaying marauding beasts, or finding someone lost in the multi-planar wilds, begrudgingly enduring Erastil's instructions for, and opinions on, making sure such things never happen again. Despite being ill-suited for planar politics, Erastil does have several allies among the deities of Golarion. Although Erastil views Abadar as a good fellow who's perhaps forgotten where he came from, both want peaceful, orderly homes for their followers. Erastil frowns on Abadar's pomp and occasional heartlessness, but the god of cities sees the value of Erastil's work in setting people and villages on the path to the grand communities they could eventually be, even as he smirks over opinions he usually views as outmoded. Erastil also appreciates the work of Torag, especially his dedication to craftsmanship and clan, but neither stubborn deity can find much more of a common ground with the other besides the mutual aspect and respect of two old men nodding across a taproom. Erastil's paternal affection for Desna is real, but distant and tinged with a slight sadness. Her independence and providence over the reliable circles of the moon and stars could make her a trusted friend, but her distance, whimsy, and encouragement of self-indulgence makes her too untrustworthy in all but times of direst need. He is more patient in his interactions with Sheelin, for her support of marriage and families strengthens communities. The goddess of art, on numerous occasions, sought out the god of hunters, asking him to guide her to the most amazing vistas and unique settings in the multiverse. Erastil regularly indulges her, enjoying her company even as he argues with her over the value of art and life. They disagree on most topics, but Sheelin's congeniality and honest appreciation of Erastil's time have preserved their friendship. Evil deities are largely disinteresting to Erastil, and he has little time or interest in doing much more than contributing arrow fire to drive them away. While he views Lamashtu and Rovagug as a frontier scout might wild monsters, he reserves a especial hatred for Urgathoa. That goddess's gluttony and festering of diseases regularly blight his people, whether in the form of deadly plagues, the tainting of game and fields, or in cultivating the sick-hearted desire for more than one's neighbors. Urgathoa is aware of the god's loathing and goes out of her way to needle Erastil, setting her minions upon fragile frontier communities, whether the opportunity arises. Erastil's followers are generally friendly toward members of other good-aligned religions, but they also harbor a sense of superiority that can vary from private conviction to outright paternalism. The faith tends to be an all-or-nothing affair, and thus attracts people with somewhat black-and-white worldviews. Most of Erastil's faithful, however, have good hearts, and though they may grumble and mutter disapprovingly at those with different beliefs, they'll also help people in true need without hesitation. Many see themselves as having a parental role toward those around them. If they don't engage in outright evangelism for their faith or worldviews, they still consider it important to attempt to instill proper values in their neighbors while aiding them. They may teach local youth valuable skills while emphasizing the importance of using those skills to contribute to their families and communities, or help a newcomer fix up a house while encouraging him to use it to start a family. They are unlikely to take action against cults or evil deities unless those worshippers directly threaten their community, although any adherent of a malevolent deity who strikes upon a conversation with one of Erastil's followers can expect a stern lecture on her misguided beliefs. Erastil's pastoral domain stands on the gentle slopes of the fourth tier of heaven. True to his ethos, Old Deadeye's realm is filled with lush farmland, punctuated by forests and rivers, and populated by small, tightly knit villages of his petitioners, reunited in death. His domain contains only a few cities, mostly as a way of fostering and promoting trade, especially between the petitioners of the Dwarven Pantheon and the Plains Archons, although a few permanent portals allow for cross-planar trade in and out of his realm. For the most part, Erastil is content to have his realm be a pleasantly rural place, while his petitioners have spent eternity in simple pleasures of working fruitful land and hunting in bountiful forests alongside their families and friends, free from hardship and sadness, while angels, archons, petitioners, devoted to the god, may take up causes of their own, acting across the multiverse to help protect families and the faithful communities and fight the horrors of evil planes. Erastil does not directly require such services and sees nothing wrong with his people supporting the celestial armies and their righteous cause by staying home and keeping heaven a stable, healthy, and well-defended plane. Most of Erastil's divine servants are animals or benign forest creatures. Some of them reside permanently in the material plane, patrolling frontier areas and keeping an eye out for settlers in need. A few legendary animals known to villagers are actually Old Deadeye's minions, rather than true animals, making appearances once or twice a generation to protect the community. In addition to his servitor race, the Stag Archons, the following allies serve Erastil and are suitable for conjuring with Planar ally or similar spells. Orangin, unique celestial heavy horse, said to be the resurrected spirit of the Paladin Jadis Vaughn's equally heroic and storied mount. Orangin appears when servants of Erastil most need aid, carrying the lost out of labyrinthine forest and saving the wagons of desperately stuck pioneers from hidden bogs. This ruby-toned heavy horse is intelligent and able to understand and interact with people speaking common, but does not speak the language himself. Black Feather, unique Avoro, able to take the form of a man, an eagle, or an eagle-man hybrid. This fierce Avoral archer is a skilled and deadly archer who hunts only for sustenance or to defend the innocent. Often he is content to perch on a rooftop, silently watching over a village when strangers appear, ready to aid in case there is trouble. The Grim White Stag. This enormous stag serves as Erastil's herald. The Grim White Stag was once a powerful spirit creature, worshipped by early humans under the tutelage of the Druids of the Green Faith. When Erastil's religion became more prominent, it allied with Old Deadeye, respecting his wisdom, strength, and nobility. Some regional tales say that in the early days of the world, Erastil hunted the beast, seeking to make a bow of its horns. Yet it proved to be so agile and hardy that after weeks of pursuit, the god of the hunt tired of tracking the beast. At night, as the god stopped to rest to enjoy a simple meal, the stag fearlessly approached, bowing low to the tenacious tracker. Erastil, understanding that the beast was no savage, welcomed the great white stag into his camp and shared his meal with the ancient spirit of the forest. From then on, the two have understood and respected one another, sharing the same reverence for the forest and creatures there, as well as care for all who will honestly live in peace with the denizens of the wilderness. Scorchbark, a unique treant, nearly crippled in a skirmish with a barbed devil. This reckless young treant now displays his burns like a badge of honor. He is obviously wary whenever an enemy uses fire near him, but is a stalwart ally and never lets it deter him from his responsibilities or cause him to hesitate in battle.
Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed Erastil. Up next is Abadar, the master of the first vault. Stay tuned, and as always, have a great day, God bless, and enjoy.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.